study circle. Welcome everyone to our special lecture on what is self-knowledge. Insights from Katha Upanishad by revered Swami Atmashraddhananda. Swami Atmashraddhananda has served as the editor of Vedanta Kesari, a spiritual monthly of Sri Ramakrishna Math, Mylapore from 2004 to 2016. He was the spiritual mentor of VSC for more than 12 years during his stay at Chennai. Swami Ji then served as one of the Acharyas of the Monastic Probationer Training Center at Ramakrishna Math, Belur, West Bengal for a couple of years. He is presently the Adhyaksha of Ramakrishna Mission, Ashrama, Kanpur and spiritual mentor of Vivekananda Samiti, IIT Kanpur. It is our pleasure to have him here with us today. Therefore, without any further delay, I welcome Swami Atmashraddhananda Ji to address the gathering.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharini. Dear Swami Mahamedhananda Ji, dear Professor Balaji, who just now gave his well-organized random thoughts, Professor Uday, Swami Pakshi, all my known and newly introduced friends here, my greetings to everybody. It feels good to be here again after a year. I was here in IIT last year for a talk, and it was nice to have shared some thoughts with all the people who had come. And as I had mentioned last time, this was one of the various occasions on which I had spoken. So I was just making a calculation at that time, having, as Dipali has introduced me, I have been coming here for the last 12 years when I was here. So on average, so whatever every year, if I make how many visits I would have made, I would have come to some 300 to 400 visits to IIT Madras. And somehow there's connection with IIT. After I left Madras, I like to call it Madras, so Chennai is also very welcome. When I went to Belur Math, there too, in IIT Kharagpur, there is a similar group, which is called the Indian Spiritual Heritage Lecture Series Group. So that is organized by some 2 or 3 professors and a few volunteers. It is fully supported by the institute, and they organize a lecture every week. So there are 4 weeks, there are 4 swamis or 3 swamis, sometimes going twice a week. So I was engaged with that too. From Belur Math, it's around 2.5 hours of journey. They would organize a vehicle. We'll go there, refresh yourself, have a session with the students from 5:30 to 7, and then start back. So that too also went on for nearly 2 years. And again, now in IIT Kanpur. So in IIT Kanpur, we have every Saturday morning a meditation session, where a couple of students come and we all sit together, have a guided meditation. We read from the Gita a few verses, we discuss, read some teachings from Swami Ji, and that's how it has been going on. And occasionally we organize some lectures also there. So that's how my connection with IIT. So it's nice that it's now 22 years since the VSC is going on. Now it is entering 23rd year, which is not a small achievement for any student group to have carried on for so long. It is something without any interruption. It is something really commendable. And my congratulations to all the generations of volunteers and students and teachers who have supported it, who have come forward and given their services, given their time, their attention to make it happen and make it go on. We are here today to discuss a subject which interests everybody, because everybody has got self. So we want to know what is self-knowledge, knowledge of the self. And as you find, there's a subheading which says Insights from the Katha Upanishad. What we are going to talk about is basically going to be based on the Katha Upanishad. So I've got a copy of Katha Upanishad with me. This is Katha Upanishad. It's just a small little book of just 120 verses. But then it has caught the attention of philosophers for centuries. So we'll discuss a bit about it. Why I showed this, because once I went to a function where the gentleman who heard about it, heard about the Upanishad, and he came forward. He was a retired teacher and said, "Are these Upanishads available for reading for common people?" So since then I decided, if I have a copy, I will definitely show it to the people. Yes, it's available to everyone. And we should be thankful to Swami Vivekananda, who insisted that these books should be made available to all people. We are all people who have been endowed with intelligence. So we all ask questions. We ask in some moments of introspection, or some moments which are rather very, very decisive moments. We ask this question, who we are. We ask questions about what things are, and that's how science has developed. It's all questioning that leads to further development. If somebody had not asked about why the apple goes down and not up, we wouldn't have the law of gravitation. So somebody asked a question, and he just did not stop with that question. He also pursued it further. He reorganized his own thoughts. He started thinking of an inherent solution or inherent answer to the question, and not some extraterrestrial answer. And that is how he discovered the law of gravitation. In the same way, as we ask questions about the outside world, we also sometimes ask questions about ourselves. Who are we? This particularly comes to us when we face a situation which could be very painful, or which could be disappointing. For instance, somebody is very successful, and we find that he is about to be given some big post. He is going to be honored, and something happens in his life, and his whole plan collapses. Then he asks question, what is life? A sort of philosophical thinking starts. As it happened in the case of we have in Ramayana, when Rama was about to be made the king, something happened in his life. And instead of becoming king, he had to go to the jungle. He was exiled for so many years. So comes a question, what is life? Why things are happening the way they are happening? And similarly, we ask, who are we who is playing in this, who are we who are playing a role in this game of life that is happening around us? So we have a certain idea of the self. All of us these days have Aadhaar card. So we have a self. Then when the card is issued to us, we say, this is what you are, this is your photograph, and this is what all your biometric details say. But then, is this all about human beings? Now this question has been haunting us, and we have been pursuing it as humanity, and particularly as Indians, for time immemorial. It is not that the question has not been answered. It is not that there is no decisive definite answer to it. But the fact is that each one of us has to discover it individually again and again. We may have an answer in Katha Upanishad, we have an answer in the Gita, maybe that Swami Vivekananda has spoken about it, maybe some other great person has given details, but no, until we make our own discovery, this only remains an intellectual possession with us without affecting our life. So question comes, what is self-knowledge? Myself. This self. This has been thought about. What is self? Now when I stand before the mirror, I see a self. I see myself. I see my body features. Everyone knows that when he's standing before the mirror, he is what he is. But then is it all about the self? No, we also have, besides the body and bodily features, we also have another self. We have the self, we have self-image. Besides the image of the body, we have self-image, image about ourselves. We sometimes think of, if I do this, what will be my image in the society? Or what will be my image in my classroom? We have a feeling. There is a question of image. Similarly, we have a self-image in our own eyes. We know this is my self-image. And this self-image is very important because this leads to what we become in life. If a person is having a very low self-esteem, low self-image, he is likely to behave in a particular way. Similarly, if he has got a right kind of self-image, he will behave in a different way. Or if he has got a very arrogant self-image, he will behave in a different way. So self-image does not leave us. It is very much with us. But is this self which we see in the mirror, or the self that we see in our own mind about ourselves, about our personality, about our taste, about our characteristics, is this the end of the inquiry? Or is it that I can go one step further? Now, this was the question that our ancestors, we are very fortunate to have had such ancestors who asked these questions. And these questions were not asked just out of curiosity. They were asked through what one of our friends said yesterday, through a research mindset. A research mindset means there is a genuineness. It's not that I ask some question with doubt, and even before the other person completes, I run away from there. No, I'm in a hurry. I am not convinced of your answer. A research mindset means I am willing to spend time. I'm willing to give my time. I'm willing to discipline myself to do the research. So such a research mindset is called in Sanskrit as jignasa. Jnatum ichcha. Jignasa. There's a difference between jignasa and samshaya or doubt. In doubt, very often we have only an intellectual query, not followed by the necessary discipline required to clear up the query. But in research, you have to have. If you take up a hypothesis and you work on that, then you have to have spend some time over that. So what is man's real self? This question came to the people in India, and as I said, our rishis deeply thought about it. Our ancestors, they were such bold people. Not bold in the sense that they will fight some external enemy. Not bold because they do a jump from some big tower. Not that kind of bravery or that kind of sense of, let us face it, adventure. Their adventure went to a different level. And that adventure was, I want to know the truth about myself. That's also an adventure. And they did everything that was required to make it possible. So they possibly gave up their homes if it was required. Not that everybody did. Some of them also developed that tremendous strength to question whether somebody likes it or not, whether the ruling people, whether the majority like it or not, but I'll ask this question and I'll try to answer this. So they were very bold people. So they arrived at certain conclusions. When we speak of the self, this was one basic fundamental conclusion that they found. They found that self that is present in each one of us is not material. It is something non-material. It is not body which is material. They said even mind is material. They went to that extent. They said it's a very fine material. It's a very subtle material. But the mind and body are both material. So they derived certain conclusions and finally said that man is like infinite being, and that infinite being means there has to be only one being. Infinite there cannot be two infinites. There has to be only one infinite. So that infinite being is present in every one of us and is trying to manifest through body and mind. That was their conclusion. And they also said, to put it in a very specific sense, that all of us are like 1 plus 3. 1 plus 3. What is that 1? 1 is that divinity in us, that non-material in us, plus 3. What are these 3 things? There's a gross body, there's a subtle body, there's a causal body. Now these are all conclusions which they arrived after a lot of thinking. So what is this gross body? Gross body everyone knows. Gross body is born, it grows, it ages and it dies. That's gross body. That's one way of putting gross body. There's other ways, you go to the doctor and he says these are the issues you are having with your body. There's another way of putting about gross body. You can also speak about gross body when you go to the gym. People are looking at the mirror and trying to do some exercise, build up their biceps. That's also about gross body. But here gross body, they said, gross body is that which is born, jayate, then it is, asti, then vardhate, it grows, it grows, it takes food, it grows with the age. Then it also, not only vardhate, it also parinamate, it also changes. Recently we saw a little video where people from age 1 to age 100, each one of them goes on telling their age. It's a small video, a few seconds, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. So there is a person, a little baby, he can't even say 1, 2, 3. It goes on. As the different people go on saying that, you see the transformation that is happening in their voice, transformation that is happening on their face, how a little baby becomes a teenager, and a teenager becomes a youth, and a youth becomes a person in his 40s, and then he is in 50s and becoming old, and at the age of 100, how it is. That is called viparinamate. It is changing, transforming itself. Then apakshiyante, it degenerates. And finally, mriyate, it dies. That's about the gross body, or the gross self. Then comes the mind. So mind, what does it consist of? So mind, again, they said, is something which consists of number of functions, mental functions. These functions, in the Vedanta Upanishad, there is a statement, is there a mind? He says, yes. How do you know that? Or sometimes I doubt, sometimes I predict, sometimes I conclude, sometimes I have some other mental function that's going on that shows there is something called mind in me. There is subtle body. And they went further and said mind is not only these functions, it is also memory, it is also putting together all the experiences that you had in a subtle form, they're all stored up there. But then they said, I said 1 plus 3. 1 is that divinity in us, 1 is that non-material something in us, it's also called Atman, and which is covered up as if by 3 things, gross body, subtle body, and the causal body. The causal body refers to the sense of ego, sense of separation, sense of otherness that we have. Otherness. I am different from somebody. Otherness. When I say I am different from somebody, there has to be sense of ego. a sense of ego, otherness. So these three things are like you have ordered something online and a packet arrives at your place and you have that something with you of which you had ordered. It is having a carton box, it's a gross body. Then you open it, you have something else which is covering the object which you had ordered, which is not as gross as the carton box. Maybe it is thermocol. So that's the mind. And then you have got a thin plastic cover. That's the subtle body or the causal body. The ego. Ego is supposed to be very thin. But then all these are considered coverings. And these coverings are over the infinite being that is present in us. What's the nature of that infinite being? That infinite being is the nature of joy. During the introduction, Professor Balaji mentioned about happiness. How happiness one gets by solving a trigonometry problem. So that happiness, it is said, it comes when the mind becomes absolutely free from ego and it becomes very quiet. There is a tremendous inner happiness that comes. That's a very unconditional happiness. Most of the happinesses are very conditional. Now, having said all this, now let's come to a point. We said we'll follow the Upanishads, we'll try to take the help from the Upanishad, the Katha Upanishad, and try to understand the self further. Before we say there are some insights from the Katha Upanishad, let's ask what are Upanishads? Because there may be some friends who would have this question, what is Upanishad? So, long back, somebody who did not know about Upanishad, who had not even heard, he said a friend had asked him to go and bring the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. He went and asked, give me Brihadaranyaka Upanyas. See, Upanyas means novel. So give me a novel called Brihadaranyaka. So what are Upanishads? And what is this word called Upanishad? So Upanishads are, technically speaking, part of the Vedas. So Vedas are huge. A large section of the Veda deals with mantras, with yajnas, with what is called as upasanas. But a very small section, could be 2% or even less, deals not with these details, but deals with certain very deep philosophical ideas which are considered in the Indian tradition as authentic conclusions. It's called Shruti. Shruti means that what has been heard. So Upanishads are that portion of the Vedas which are the very finest philosophical thoughts, and since they are the essence of the Vedas and they are also considered the end of the Vedas, after which Vedas have nothing else to say, they are called the Vedanta. Now this word definitely some of you must have heard, Vedanta. So Vedanta and Upanishad mean same. But what does the term Upanishad mean? So Upanishad, Acharya Shankara gives a beautiful explanation of the term Upanishad in the beginning of the Katha Upanishad itself. He says it's a knowledge that loosens the bonds of the limitations that have been imposed on us by matter. It's a knowledge that loosens the bonds of the limits that have been imposed on us by matter. Another meaning of the term Upanishad is that it is something which you gain, knowledge that you gain by sitting near a teacher. Upanishad, you sit near a teacher, which means there is a personal communion, there is a deep sense of connection between the student and the teacher is imparting that knowledge. That is Upanishad. And third meaning is the set of books which contain all this is also called the Upanishads. As I showed you the Katha Upanishad. So like that there are 10 principal Upanishads, and then there are other minor Upanishads, and there are also Upanishads which have been later accretions. So these 10 principal Upanishads are like Katha, Kena, Isha, Aitarya, Brihadaranyaka, Chandogya, etc. Today we'll be reading a bit of the Katha Upanishad. And then you have the minor Upanishads like Maitri Upanishad, Amrita Bindu Upanishad, and so on. And there are some Upanishads which have been added by others who were very much fascinated by the very idea of Upanishads. I haven't seen it, but I have heard that there is a thing called Allah Upanishad. So there is somebody who was very much enamored by that. So he wrote an Upanishad based on his understanding, and he called it as Allah Upanishad. So the Upanishads were translated into English not very long ago. So they did not travel to the West at least maybe 200 years or 250 years back. The Mughal king Aurangzeb had an elder brother, and that elder brother had an interest in the Upanishads. He had developed a deep, what I said in the beginning, a research mindset. So he took all the care. His name was Dara Shikoh. He took all the care to learn the Upanishads. He would stay in Delhi, would take the boat and go all the way to Banaras to learn from the Pandits something about Sanskrit and learn about the Upanishads. And it is said he translated them later on into Persian language. And of course, he had a very inhuman end because of his elder brother, but that's a different story. The point is, when he translated that into the Persian language, and later it went into other languages also. It came into German, it came to French, and finally into English. And now the whole cycle is that it's available in many of the Indian languages also. The Upanishads are available in Indian languages also, like Hindi, Kannada, Marathi, and so on. So these Upanishads were called Rahasya Vidya, a secret doctrine. Why? Because it deals with the deepest Rahasya, secret of our being. And it was also said, don't teach Upanishads to everybody. The reason being, people will not understand it. And if they don't understand, and if they misunderstand, that will be more dangerous. So if somebody understands, it's okay, and somebody doesn't understand, it's okay, but somebody misunderstands, it's very dangerous. It's like a person who has completely misinterpreted the whole thing. So it was said it should be given to people who are prepared to listen about it. And Swami Vivekananda, when he came to the scene, he said, no, let the Upanishads be given to all. That's how we have the published version of the Katha Upanishad and many other Upanishads. He said, let Vedanta reach to everyone, because this contains such remarkable knowledge. If everybody comes to know his real nature, his real being, he will be a very different person. So he will not be just suffering from his body and mind kind of things, but he will become an immortal, a being who is full of joy and full of strength to face the problems of life. This is about the Upanishads. Then what is Katha Upanishad? The Katha Upanishad is one of the important Upanishads. It comes from the Katha Shakha of the Krishna Yajurveda. Now there are different ways of deriving the Katha Upanishad, though there are, because the Vedas have been, over the centuries, many of them have been lost because of, they were not first written, they were transferred or transmitted from the teacher to the student, and if that line is disrupted, so the Upanishad as if is lost, or the Vedas is lost. Actually, it is not lost, it is still in the cosmic mind, but then right now it's not available in that form. So some of the major section has been lost, but then we do not know exactly where the Katha Upanishad can be exactly placed, but generally speaking, it is from the Krishna Yajurveda. It's also found in some form in Atharva Veda, in Sama Veda, a bit in the Rig Veda, but then general accepted version is from the Krishna Yajurveda. And it has been quoted very widely by the French and German and English scholars who have worked on the Upanishads or on the deep philosophical issues, which means it has been very popular with them because it gives certain answers which nobody else or you don't find it anywhere. Now this Upanishad's beauty is, and Swami Vivekananda was very fond of this Upanishad, the beauty is that this Upanishad is in the form of a story, in the form of a Akhyayika, it's called in Sanskrit. Akhyayika is a story. So what's the story? The story is through a young boy. His name is Nachiketa. His father is Vajasrava. Vajasrava is a very honest, very good man, and he wants to do a big yajna, and he wants to earn actually name, a good, a famous status through doing that. That was his hidden desire, but the yajna which he was doing was meant to be done in a way that will bring, that will involve that he should give up everything for the sake of that yajna. So that's how people thought that was the way of gaining something in those days. As he was doing that yajna, it also meant that he has to give away all his wealth. But somewhere in his mind, there was some kind of a attachment for his own child, his Nachiketa. So he had kept certain good cows out, and the cows which were not good, this kind of thing happens, this kind of calculations happen. So the cows which had given the milk which could be taken from them and which had lost all their capacity to further grow. So those cows he was giving as dakshina. The story further says, when Nachiketa, the young little boy, was observing his father, the Upanishad uses a word in which Swami Vivekananda quotes very often. He says, Shraddha avivesha. Shraddha entered into him. What is this Shraddha? Swami Ji says that Shraddha cannot be translated into English. Generally we say Shraddha means it is kind of faith, Shraddha. But Shraddha is more than faith. In Shraddha there is a lot of reverence. There is a lot of determination. There is a lot of sense of reverence, determination, and a sense of humility. So with that kind of feeling, with Shraddha, Nachiketa approaches the teacher, which means his own father. He's thinking over it. The little boy is thinking over it. He's saying, my father is giving away such cows, and in the yajna, as far as I understand, this is not going to bring him the right result. Is it proper for him to do? He did not go and quarrel with his father. He rather very respectfully thought over it. He said, I am also his property, and the yajna involves that he has to give away all his property. So he goes and says, Father, you are giving away everything. Whom are you going to give me to? Father thought, little fellow, he is babbling a little. He did not respond. Then he asked again, Sir, tell me what's the answer. Father did not reply. When third time when he asked about it, then father kind of lost his temper and said, I give you to death. Sometimes, parents become angry, say, go to hell, something like that. So the child, again, because he had Shraddha, that reverential researcher kind of mindset, he did not just said, okay, my father said something, I did not go to the Yamaraja or to the death. Rather, he started thinking. He said, look, this word has been like that. This word is not permanent. Only those people who have got some principled way of living, those who are honest, they are truthful, they alone attain something great in life. So that was his thinking. And with that thinking, he went on further also evaluating him, self-evaluation, that am I so bad that my father should send me to death? Is it that I am so useless, as we use the word these days? No, I am something. I have been first among many. With this kind of thinking, but I am not that I am worst among the lot. I am first among many. I may not be the first, but I am first among many. So with that, he finally decides to go to the Yamaloka. Now, Swami Vivekananda was very fond of this story, but when he was once discussing this, somebody asked him a question, how did he go to the Yamaloka? Because how will he carry his body to the Yamaloka? Swami says, I will not go into the metaphysics of that. But it happened, it's a story. So it is said that he goes to the Yamaloka, a little boy who is not even a teenager, who is full of Shraddha, who has that determination, he has that bravery, he has that faith, he wants to fulfill his father's, let's say, curse, of he being going to the Yamloka. When he reaches there, to his surprise, Yamaraja is out of station. He's away for 3 days. So when he returns, and he is told, Yamaraja is told by his courtiers that, look, one very learned, very great boy has come, he's waiting for you. And for 3 days he's waiting for you without taking any food. He said, until you come, I will not take anything. So this is not good. You may get some bad result out of it. You better go, hurry up to him, carry some water and some snacks to him. And he does that. The Upanishad describes it. So the Yamaraja goes there and says, oh little one, you are the pure one, you are here, you have come to my place, I offer you water, I offer you snacks, please don't mind it. I also seek apology in the form of offering you 3 boons, because you have stayed for 3 nights in my place. As an amend, I offer you 3 boons. Now that is what possibly Nachiketa wanted. The story is not very big. We don't have many more things to add, except that he asked for 3 boons. So the first boon Nachiketa asks is that my father became angry, he sent me here, but I want that my father's anger should cool down, and when he sees me, he recognizes me. It's a very intelligent boon, which means I will go back. I'm not going to be here with you all the time. And Nachiketa's boon is granted. The father says, Nachiketa says, Shanta Sankalpo. His Shanta Manasa, Shanta Sankalpa. And he would recognize me. This is also an important point. People should recognize you. Yes, my son has come. It's not that his ghost has come. Or somebody else has impersonated. Yes, Nachiketa has come. So the first was for his own family, he asked the boon. The second boon he asked was, he had heard about heaven. Like anybody else, he had heard about heaven. So he wanted to know, can you tell me if there is any ritual through which we can reach the heaven? This heaven idea. Again, as I said, our rishis were very bold. They did not stop at the heaven idea at all. They said, what is heaven? Swami Vivekananda describes heaven as a place where we fulfill all our desires minus all the bad results that come out of fulfilling those desires. Plus, but no minuses. So I will have plenty of food, I will never get diabetes. I'll never put on weight also. So I will, whatever I wish I can eat, I will never have any indigestion. So that's heaven. This is one example, food is one example. There are other examples. But I will have all the good things minus all the accompanying side results. So this was the kind of heaven which most people think of. But there is a word beyond heaven, beyond hell, and that is what he wanted to know. So the second boon also was granted by Yamaraja. Yamaraja said, yes, it is done. You can, these are the rituals. The rituals are not described in all details, but some small descriptions are given. And he's so pleased with his ability that Yamaraja gives him his necklace. He says, this is the 4th one I am giving you. I am very happy. But Nachiketa is very clever. He says, don't think the 3rd one is over. I have the 3rd boon. So the 3rd boon is what our subject for discussion is here. The 3rd boon is, look, there are some people who say that there is something which survives death, and some people who say that there is nothing that survives our death. Which means, is there something in us which survives all these, all our experiences, worldly experiences? I'll read this verse which Nachiketa says in the Katha Upanishad. This is the verse that is given there, where he puts this question. He says, Yeyam prete vichikitsa manushye asti chaike nasti chaike. Some people say, yes, there is something which survives our death. And some people say nothing survives our death. Etad vidyam Anushishastvahaham Varanam Esha Varas Tritiyam. So I want third boon. This is the third boon which I want. When man dies, there is this doubt. Some say he exists. This is one of the most ancient questions we all have, that he exists after death. And some say no, he does not. This I should like to know, being taught by you. This is my third boon. Yamaraja was least prepared for that. He said, this kind of question this little boy would ask, this kind of boon. So he said, let me test him. Just as in your IIT you have got JEE test, he also put it as to him. And he had his own way of putting the test. You know, this testing business or this admission or entrance has been there in existence. It is said in Nalanda, they used to have an admission test. There were 10,000 people who would come, who would be given entry, but there used to be an admission test. So we need not blame people who have designed this kind of test. It's a very ancient practice. So in the Upanishad itself, we have this, but he doesn't call it test. He calls it temptation. Because this question is that whether there is God, whether there is a self which survives this body. So he wants to know about it. So he says, why do you ask this typical question? Even gods are not able to ask this question and understand. It's a very subtle thing. Better you enjoy this life. And Yamaraja gives him a wonderful whole thing he presents before him. He says, choose sons and grandsons who will live 100 years, herds of cattle, elephants, horses, gold. Choose a vast territory on earth and live yourself as many years as you wish. But don't ask this question. Free me from this question. And you know, a large number of people, it happens in life. When we start asking these questions, whether there is a self which is beyond body and mind, we have all kinds of things which nature offers us. And we stop asking questions further. The nature says, why do you ask all these questions? Be busy with be happy with the word that is given to you. Enjoy yourself. Don't ask this question. This is what Yamaraja exactly said. That you enjoy yourself. Don't ask this question. And then he not only said, maybe this is not sufficient offer, he further goes and tells to Nachiketa that whatever object of desires are difficult to get in this world of mortals, do you ask all of them according to your choice. Any kind of happiness that you want to ask, you can ask. These fair damsels along with the chariots and musical instruments which are difficult to obtain by any man, be attended upon by them whom I bestow upon you, but ask not anything about death, and that survives death. So it was kind of a test which Nachiketa was made to go, but Nachiketa had that sharp intelligence. He saw through it and he said, all these which you are offering me, they are great, but they are all short-lived. No one lives forever. Even if you offer me a long life, that's also long, but not forever. It may be 300 years. It may be 500 years. And not only that, as I start enjoying things, my senses will become weak. Jarayanti teja. It takes away all the energy of the senses as the days go by. And all this, the chariots which you're asking me and other things to have, I don't want you keep them with you. He has that courage to tell Yamaraja that you keep these things with you. When Nachiketa's answers are very firm and clear, then Yamaraja starts teaching about the self. He makes it first thing that he makes it very clear, he says, you have withstood all these temptations, now you are fit enough to listen to this question, to answer to this question. So he starts giving him, first of all, a very important thing he tells him about the self. This idea of self which we find in the Katha Upanishad is that in this world there are two paths. He calls it as Shreyas and Preyas. What is Shreyas? Shreyas is the path of that which is ultimately good for us. And prayers is that which is pleasant. That which is pleasant may not be good for us. So he goes to that point. He begins that most of the people, they take to only the path of prayers because it is a highway. It's open before you. Everybody is rushing in that. Everybody is walking on that national highway called prayers. Whereas Shreyas is rather a small little path somewhere on the side. Very few people take it up. It is on that path that you have the answer to the deepest questions of life that you are asking. Let's understand this. Actually, these are all, there are two evolutionary paths. As the man evolves, he just follows the path of prayers or pleasure. That's one state. And our scriptures don't say that it is absolutely wrong to do that. We speak of the 4 purusharthas, the 4 things which a human being can pursue in life. And they are enumerated like dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So kama and artha are also considered purusharthas. They are considered as something which a person, in his evolutionary struggle, he first tries to follow that. Then comes an issue when he becomes sufficiently deep, sufficiently evolved. He starts asking these deeper questions because he is endowed with shraddha, because he is endowed with a determination. Then the answer starts coming before him. But generally speaking, Shreyas and Prayas both present themselves before a human being throughout his life, in fact, at every moment of his life. Shreyascha, Prayascha, Manushyam, Stauho, Samparitya, Vivinikta Dhira. Dhira is a very important, beautiful word. It appears in the Upanishad more than once. The Dhira means person who has got the courage to examine, the courage to analyze, courage not to be carried away by things of the world and ask the truth. So this Dhira, he separates the Shreyas and Prayas, and then he takes up that which is very beneficial to him, not just pleasurable to him. You see, the human beings, according to the Upanishads, according to the Sanatana Dharma, and according to the Indian tradition, there are 3 types of beings in us present. One is called Pashu Yoni, the Deva Yoni, and Manushya Yoni. You have the Pashu Yoni and the Deva Yoni, which are 2 extremes. The Pashu Yoni is where the man is, where the living being is enjoying things at the Pashu level, at the animal level. You know what animal level is. It could be very cruel, it could be very gross, but that is the Pashu Yoni. And then you have the other extreme, which is Deva Yoni, where again there is enjoyment, but there is no freedom. It is only in the Manushya Yoni, which means as a human being, that you stand on a crossroads. You can choose. You can decide. You have got tremendous freedom to choose what is really good for you. You have that freedom. You can choose either to go either of these gross or little divine kind of pleasures, or choose the path of inner discovery. That is present before every human being. And Yamaraja further says, what I am telling you is not available for hearing for most people. Shravanayapi bahubhirna labhya. It's not available to most of the people because it's something very subtle. As I said in the beginning, it was considered a rahasya vidya, a secret thing, because people are not always open to that. Suppose even those who hear, not that everybody is going to understand it. It's not that everybody is going to immediately grasp the meaning of what is being said to him. Because the speaker, the one who is giving this knowledge, should be wonderful. Ascharya. Wonderful means he should be a man with realization who can impart that knowledge to the person who is listening. Not only that, the person who is listening should also be wonderful. There should be an extraordinary teacher, an extraordinary listener or the student. Then this knowledge becomes easy to understand. And then he further says, Nayamatma pravachanena labhya. This Atman, this self of which you asked the question whether there is a self, this self cannot be attained by pravachana, which means by giving a lecture, or na medhaya na bahuna shutena, not even by sharp intellect, not even by listening a lot of or reading a lot of books. This is a wonderful statement. Only in scriptures like this we have this great boldness to say that you can't realize the Atman by reading and listening, though they are speaking about that only. Then how do you realize that? He says you can realize only if you are pure enough. Now, purity is something which is not emphasized in our educational system. What is emphasized is sharpness of intellect. What is emphasized is IQ. Their sense of IQ you should have. Purity is considered something which is meant perhaps for monks, perhaps for some spiritual people. But that was not the original plan. The original plan was, if you have that purity of mind, you will be able to grasp those subtle truths which will make the knowledge that you gain through your sharp mind a meaningful knowledge. Through sharp mind, we gain some knowledge. For instance, we develop a weapon. We develop, let's say, AK-47. Let's say that's a development that we make through our intelligence. We develop a weapon which has its own value. But then, who is going to use it matters. In whose hands it go, which means what is his value system? What is he that finally wants through that weapon? It's like a knife. If it is in the hands of a surgeon, we pay money to him and say, please come and use this. We wait for that. And if it is in the hands of somebody who has a criminal mind, we put him back behind the bars. It is not the knife in itself, but the value system of the person who holds it, which is of great importance. So he says that this Atman, this divinity, this self within, can be only realized by a person whose mind is pure. And he makes another statement, Na virato duscharita na shanto, one who is not stopped doing wrong things, one who has not become calm, such a person will not be able to realize this Atman. There's a wonderful statement given, a wonderful description given in the Upanishad about the human personality. We have been discussing what is self. And self is also compared to a rider. So we are all used to Ola riding, Uber riding. In those days there were chariots. So there is a chariot and there is a rider. And that rider is the self. But then what about the other things in the chariot, in the Ratha? It said that there is the horses, there is a rein or the rope through the nose of the horse, which is controlled by the driver, and there is a road, and there is a rider. Then only the whole picture is completed. And exactly the same picture is drawn in the Katha Upanishad about the self. It says, this body is like the Ratha. This body is like a chariot. And the senses, the five senses that we have, the senses which see, senses which hear, smell, touch, and so on, these senses are the horses. And they are running on the road called the objects of senses. Now, what are the objects of senses? There are five objects of senses. There are five objects of five senses and five objects of senses. These five objects are also very much generalized. There are hundreds of objects around us, but that's not enumerated. They are generalized. For instance, it is said that for the eye, the object is rupa or beauty or form. For the ear, the object is shabda or sound, and so on. So these five senses have got the five objects, and that is a road. On that road, the chariot called body, with 5 senses as the horses, which are controlled by the mind. We are able to operate them only if the mind is present. Suppose you are looking at a picture, you are enjoying something on your YouTube channel and you open it, but your mind is somewhere else. Until the mind is along with the senses, you can't enjoy anything. It's not just that you should have the sense organ which is healthy. It's not just a healthy eye. You should have the mind also with that. And that mind, again, should be controlled by the intellect. The rider is the intellect. The driver is the intellect. The reins are the mind, which are connected with the senses, and the person who is actually making it run is the buddhi, or our decisive or decision-making faculty. This buddhi should be purified. This buddhi should be given training. That buddhi alone will take the chariot on the right road, the road of self-realization. If the buddhi is asleep, or it has been bribed by the senses, or it is not awake enough or trained enough, then the senses become the master. Let's look at it. The senses become the master. It's like you get into a car and you should sit there and you tell, please take me to the railway station, and you fall asleep. When you open your eyes, you find you are in front of a cinema hall. I asked you to go to railway station, you brought me to cinema hall. What to do, sir? This car goes in its own particular way. It doesn't listen to me. Which means the senses are not under your control. The senses must be brought under control. So it's a tricky point. It's not that senses are to be killed. The senses have to be maintained, but they should be trained to do those things which are ultimately leading to the path of Shreyas, not preyas. The path of that which is beneficial, not that which is just pleasurable to us. And about the nature of the self, again, the Upanishad says, it is all pervasive, it is subtle. Anoraniyan mahato mahiyan. It is bigger than the biggest, smaller than the smallest. It is very subtle. I say, if it is very subtle, if it is very big, it's contradictory. It is only to say that it is formless. It is only to use a contradictory language to say that it is formless. And it is all pervasive. One can get it only, the Katha Upanishad says, tamakratu. You can purify the mind, which is what all our culture and all our spiritual practices finally aim at. If a person is asked to tell truth, it's not something just a social good. It is because it will purify the mind and you will be able to see the deepest core of your being, which solves the problems of life. That they are all aimed at that. And it is in this Upanishad again, the famous sentence which I hope some of you know, is it occurs. It says, Uttishtata jagrata prapya varan nibodhata. Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. That's the translation given by Swami Vivekananda. You find it here in some of the VSC posters also. That appears here. The Yamaraja says, there is such a wonderful thing available to you called your own self, which is the source of happiness, the source of infinite life. And that infinite source of happiness and joy which you have within, Uttishtata Jagrata. Please rise up. Please try to understand that that is what you are finally aimed to reach. And if you can make that as goal and try to reach, then continue, reach the people who know about it, learn from them. Prapya varan nibodhata, which means go to varan. Varan means the learned people. People, not learned means who know a lot of books, who can quote a lot or who are good speakers. It's not the reference to that. The reference is to people who have got the subtle understanding of life. Go to them, listen to them. This is another very important point. Listen to them. It's not just go there and question and quarrel with them and come back. Listen to them and try to put into practice. And then you realize the self which is all pervasive, which is your real nature. Another thing before I close, In the Katha Upanishad, we have this insight about the self, that self which is all pervasive, the self which is never born, self which is not going to die. We also said in the beginning that we are wearing as if the three kinds of coverings: the gross, the subtle, and the causal. So how do you now arrive at a conclusion that there is this infinite self and you have these three coverings on you? What are you supposed to do finally? It is said that when you die, when a person dies, now this question comes, when a person dies, so all this self also dies? That was the original question. So he said, no, when a person dies, it is only the gross body that dies, not the subtle body. The subtle body as if is carried to the next life, searching for those circumstances where it can fulfill itself, fulfill its own desires, fulfill its unfulfilled plans. So, finally he says that if you have completed this journey of searching for fulfillment outside, if you have completed this through Viveka, which means deep, pure, analytical thinking and introspective thinking, and by developing that Shraddha, that tremendous faith in the Atman, then you will become pure enough in this life itself. You don't have to go and take another birth. Here itself you develop that capacity to know the self, and it is possible for every human being, and this is what every human being finally, as he evolves, will finally reach to. As we go on evolving, there's an evolution that happens when we ask about the Atman, we ask the question about our deepest core, and the Upanishad says that one can attain that. So these are the few insights about the self that we find in the Upanishad. With this, we'll close. Thank you.